The one thing begins with a simple but powerful observation. Most people are trying to do too many things at once, and that is exactly why their results remain ordinary. Gary Keller and Papasan argue that modern life rewards the appearance of busyness, but busyness and progress are not the same. People make long to-do lists, chase multiple goals, answer endless messages, juggle responsibilities, and fill every hour with activity. Yet despite all that movement, many still feel stuck. The book challenges the assumption that success comes from balancing everything equally. It argues that extraordinary results are not produced by spreading attention evenly across many priorities. They come from narrowing focus, identifying what matters most, and putting disproportionate energy there. This is a radical message because most productivity advice encourages people to manage more efficiently. The one thing takes a different approach. It says the real breakthrough is not better management of many things. It is the discipline of doing fewer things with greater focus. Keller and Papasan want the reader to see that every time attention is divided, power is diluted. When your day is chopped into dozens of fragments, your best thinking rarely gets enough time to create something meaningful. The result is a life of motion without real momentum. This matters because many people mistake being overwhelmed for being important. They assume that if everything feels urgent, they must be engaged in meaningful work. But the book insists that overwhelm is often a sign that priorities have not been clarified. The authors do not say that responsibilities disappear or that life becomes magically simple. Instead, they argue that progress becomes much more possible when you stop asking, "How can I do it all?" and start asking, "What matters most right now?" That shift changes everything. It turns productivity into a question of selection instead of endurance. It turns focus into a competitive advantage. It replaces scattered effort with targeted action. What makes this opening so compelling is that it exposes a truth many people already feel. They know they are busy. They know they are trying. But they also know that too much of their energy is being consumed by things that do not create their biggest results. The one thing begins by telling the reader that this problem is not a personal flaw. It is often the natural outcome of living without a clearly protected priority. And once that priority becomes visible, life starts to change. At the heart of the one thing is a central claim: extraordinary results come from focusing on one thing at a time. Gary Keller and Papasan do not deny that life includes many responsibilities. But they insist that if you want exceptional progress in any area, you must identify the single most important thing that will make the biggest difference and concentrate on it. This is powerful because it directly challenges multitasking culture. Many people believe doing more at once makes them more productive. The book argues the opposite. Success does not usually come from juggling equally. It comes from sequencing intentionally. One thing first, then the next. The authors use the image of dominoes. A small domino can knock down a larger one, and a line of properly placed dominoes can create surprising force. In the same way, one focused action can set off a chain reaction. A key task completed today may make tomorrow easier, next week clearer, and long-term progress more likely. This matters because people often treat all tasks as if they carry similar weight. They do not. Some actions have far more leverage than others. Some create movement across multiple areas. Others only create the illusion of productivity. The one thing teaches that you must become a student of leverage. Instead of asking, "What should I do next?" from a giant list, ask which one action will have the greatest impact. Which task, once completed, will make other tasks easier or unnecessary. This is not only a productivity idea. It is a way of thinking. It trains the mind to look for essential progress instead of total activity. The practical lesson is that every day should include at least one high-leverage priority. A task that matters more than the others. A task that serves the bigger goal instead of just maintaining motion. The authors are not saying small tasks never matter. They are saying they should not be allowed to crowd out what matters most. When the most important work is postponed until everything else is done, it often never gets your best energy. Their deeper message is that focus creates force. The more concentrated your effort, the more powerful your results become. A person who directs energy intelligently can outperform someone who stays busy in all directions. In the world of this book, extraordinary success is not mysterious. It is often the natural outcome of identifying the right thing and giving it sustained, serious attention. The most famous idea in The One Thing is what the authors call the focusing question. It is simple, but it has enormous power. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it everything else will be easier or unnecessary? This question sits at the center of the whole book. Gary Keller and Papasan present it as a tool for cutting through confusion, busyness, and overwhelm. Instead of reacting to everything at once, the question forces you to identify the action with the highest leverage. This matters because most people face their work and life from a place of complexity. They see 10 priorities, 20 requests, multiple goals, and constant unfinished tasks. The result is scattered attention. The focusing question cuts through that noise by asking for the most important next move. Its brilliance comes from the phrase easier or unnecessary. That phrase shifts the mind toward leverage. You are not merely looking for the next task. You are looking for the task that changes the rest of the game. For example, if your goal is to improve your business, the one thing might be learning how to generate more qualified leads. If your goal is to improve health, the one thing might be building a consistent sleep routine. If your goal is to become a better creator, the one thing might be writing every morning before distractions take over. The answer depends on the season, but the principle stays the same. The practical lesson is to ask this question often. Ask it for your life. Ask it for the year. Ask it for the month. Ask it for the day. Ask it when you feel scattered. Ask it when opportunities appear. Ask it when you are unsure where to begin. The authors show that this question works because it aligns action with results. It stops you from doing things merely because they are available or urgent. It helps you choose the work that actually moves your biggest goal forward. There is also a deeper psychological benefit. The focusing question reduces anxiety. Instead of carrying everything mentally, you begin looking for the most important next move. That creates direction. Keller and Papasan want the reader to understand that clarity does not come from thinking about everything harder. It often comes from asking a better question. In The One Thing, this question becomes a kind of compass. It points you back toward the vital action in the middle of noise. And once you start using it seriously, the quality of your decisions begins to improve in a very practical way. One of the strongest arguments in The One Thing is that multitasking is largely a myth. Gary Keller and Papasan say that what most people call multitasking is actually task switching. The brain is not doing several demanding things at once very well. It is rapidly shifting attention between them, and each shift comes with a cost. This is important because multitasking has long been treated like a modern strength. People boast about it. Workplaces reward it. Devices encourage it. But the book argues that multitasking often reduces quality, weakens concentration, and increases mistakes. Every time you shift from one task to another, some of your attention remains stuck on the previous thing. The mind needs time to re-enter depth. That means repeated switching breaks momentum and lowers cognitive power. This matters especially for meaningful work. Writing, strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, learning, and decision-making all require depth. They suffer when attention is fragmented. A person may look busy while switching constantly, but the quality of their output often declines. The authors want readers to stop confusing speed of switching with power of focus. The most effective people are often not the ones doing many things at once. They are the ones protecting concentration long enough to finish the most important thing. The practical lesson is to reduce unnecessary switching. Close and use tabs. Silence notifications. Stop bouncing between messages and deep work. Let one task have your full mind for a meaningful stretch of time. This idea is especially useful because many people feel mentally exhausted not from hard work itself, but from endless partial attention. Their day becomes a series of interruptions rather than a sequence of meaningful efforts. Keller and Papasan are not saying life will never require quick shifts. Some jobs include that reality. But they're saying that extraordinary work rarely comes from living in constant fragmentation. Their deeper point is that attention is a limited resource. The more thinly it is spread, the weaker its force becomes. A distracted mind may stay active, but it rarely produces its best results. In the logic of the one thing, concentration is not merely a preference. It is a performance advantage. And rejecting multitasking is one of the first ways to reclaim that advantage. A powerful idea in the one thing is that success is built sequentially. Gary Keller and J. Papasan argue that most extraordinary achievements do not happen by doing everything at once. They happen by doing the right thing now, then the next right thing after that. This matters because many people feel behind precisely because they are trying to advance in every area at the same time. They want to improve health, money, relationships, career, side projects, learning, and personal growth all in one burst. The result is often frustration. Energy becomes divided, and progress remains shallow. The authors offer a calmer and more effective view. You can eventually build many parts of life, but not all at full intensity at the same moment. Progress works better when priorities are sequenced. This does not mean ignoring everything else forever. It means recognizing that in every season, one area usually deserves a stronger share of focus. If that area receives enough sustained attention, it creates momentum that may later support the next area. The domino effect appears again here. One thing knocks into another. Progress compounds when it is built in order rather than in chaos. The practical lesson is that when life feels overwhelming, you should stop asking how to move everything forward equally. Ask instead what deserves the strongest attention now. What is the one thing that, if improved, would have the greatest effect on the rest? This principle is psychologically relieving because it removes the fantasy that you must become perfect in every dimension immediately. It gives permission to focus. Keller and Papasan want the reader to understand that scattered ambition often weakens results. Focused sequencing strengthens them. What feels slower at first can actually become faster because effort is no longer diluted. This section is especially valuable for people who are highly driven but chronically overloaded. It reminds them that doing fewer things right now is not a failure of ambition. It is often the smartest way to reach bigger goals. The deeper message is that extraordinary results come from alignment in time. One meaningful step, followed by another, outperforms simultaneous overreach. In the one thing, the path to bigger success is not wider effort. It is narrower effort, applied in the right order until momentum begins to build. Gary Keller and J. Papasan do not argue against big goals. In fact, they strongly encourage thinking big. But they also warn that big goals become useless if they are not translated into clear action. That is why the one thing teaches a process often described as goal setting to the now. The idea is simple. Start with the long-term vision, then work backward until you reach the action that matters today. If you know where you want to be someday, ask what you must accomplish in 5 years. Then ask what must happen this year, this month, this week, and today to make that future possible. This matters because many people either dream big without building a pathway, or they stay trapped in daily tasks without connecting them to any larger direction. Keller and Papasan try to connect both. Vision and execution must support each other. This process is powerful because it makes large goals less abstract. Instead of feeling inspired for a moment and then overwhelmed, you create a chain of smaller focus points leading back to now. The practical lesson is that every major ambition should be brought into present action. If your someday goal is to write a book, what is your one thing this year? If this year's goal is to finish a draft, what is your one thing this month? If this month's goal is to complete a section, what is your one thing today? This creates movement. The authors also emphasize that the step you take now should not be random. It should be the one that most directly supports the larger chain. This principle is helpful because it prevents both fantasy and drift. You do not just admire the future. You also do not get lost in meaningless busyness. You connect the two through focused sequencing. There is also encouragement here. Big success stops feeling impossible when you realize it can be reached through smaller, well-chosen actions repeated over time. Keller and Papasan want readers to understand that extraordinary lives are not built in giant leaps every day. They're often built by linking one powerful now to one meaningful future. Their deeper message is that focus becomes more motivating when it serves a clear long-term direction. Today's one thing matters more when you know where it leads. In the one thing, big thinking is not separate from disciplined action. It becomes useful only when it is brought all the way down to the next step that can be done now. One of the most useful ideas in the one thing is that discipline does not need to be constant in every area forever. Gary Keller and Papasan argue that what really matters is enough discipline for long enough to build the right habit. This is an important distinction because many people think discipline means endless willpower. They imagine that successful people are simply stronger every day in every category. The book offers a more realistic picture. Discipline is needed most at the beginning, when a habit is still fragile. Once the habit becomes established, less effort is required to maintain it. This matters because it makes change feel more possible. You do not need unlimited self-control across your whole life at once. You need focused discipline where it matters most, until the desired behavior becomes more automatic. The authors connect this to the one thing principle. Rather than trying to build 10 habits at once, choose the one habit that would matter most right now. Then give it enough consistency that it starts supporting you instead of depending entirely on motivation. The practical lesson is to stop scattering discipline. Pick the behavior with the highest leverage. Protect it. Repeat it. Let it become part of your life before taking on too much more. This idea is especially valuable because many people fail not from lack of desire, but from trying to reform everything simultaneously. Their discipline gets exhausted across too many fronts. Keller and Papasan are saying that discipline works better when concentrated. Build one strong habit, and it can begin strengthening the rest of your life. There is also a psychological benefit here. Success starts to feel less like heroic struggle and more like intelligent design. Once a habit is in place, progress feels more sustainable. The deeper message is that discipline is not the end goal. The end goal is a life where the most important behaviors happen with less friction because they have become embedded in routine. In the one thing, discipline is a bridge. You use it to build the habit that supports your priority. And once that bridge is established, your attention and effort become freer for the next meaningful challenge. Gary Keller and Papasan make an important observation about willpower. It is not always available at the same level. Most people act as if they can call on strong self-control at any time of day. The book argues that this is unrealistic. Willpower is a limited resource, and it tends to decline as decisions, stress, and distractions accumulate. This matters because many people place their most important work into whatever time is left after everything else. By then, their energy is lower, their attention is fragmented, and their self-control is weaker. They wonder why they keep procrastinating on what matters most, but often the deeper issue is timing. The one thing teaches that your most important priority should be placed where your willpower is strongest, not where it is most convenient for everyone else. For many people, that means earlier in the day. Before meetings multiply, before messages pile up, before decision fatigue grows. The authors are not saying every person must work in the morning, but they are saying that high-priority work deserves high-quality energy. The practical lesson is to stop assuming your best work can always happen later. Identify when you are mentally strongest and protect that time for your one thing. This is powerful because it respects reality. Instead of building productivity around idealized self-control, it builds productivity around human limits. The authors also encourage reducing unnecessary decision-making around your priority. The fewer choices you must make before doing the work, the less willpower is drained. Routines, time blocks, and clear setups all help preserve energy. This principle is especially useful because it removes some of the shame people feel around inconsistency. Sometimes the issue is not laziness. Sometimes they are trying to do demanding work after their best mental resources are already spent. Keller and Papasan want readers to understand that focus is not only about deciding what matters. It is also about deciding when to give it your strongest self. Their deeper message is that extraordinary results do not come from using willpower randomly. They come from protecting it and aiming it at the task with the highest payoff. In the one thing, wise use of willpower becomes a strategic advantage. You do not need more self-control in every moment. You need enough at the right moment for the right thing. One of the most concrete strategies in the one thing is time blocking. Gary Keller and Papasan argue that if something is truly important, it should not be left to chance. It should have time reserved for it in your schedule. This matters because many people claim something is a priority but never actually defend time for it. They hope they will get to it. They wait for the perfect moment. They plan to work on it once the urgent things are done. But urgent things rarely finish on their own. Without protected time, the important gets squeezed out. Time blocking solves that problem by turning intention into commitment. You literally place your one thing into the calendar and guard that space. The authors suggest that this block should not be casual. It should be treated seriously, like an appointment with your future. During that period, the priority comes first and distractions are reduced as much as possible. This principle is powerful because it gives your goal a physical place in your day. Instead of being a vague wish, it becomes scheduled action. The practical lesson is to identify your one thing and reserve focused time for it consistently. That may be the first hours of the workday, a fixed morning routine, or a protected block during your most alert period. The exact time matters less than the seriousness with which it is defended. Keller and Papasan also show that time blocking builds identity. When you repeatedly protect time for meaningful work, you begin becoming the kind of person who honors priorities instead of merely admiring them. This is especially useful because modern life tends to fragment attention unless boundaries are made visible. A calendar block becomes one of those boundaries. There is also a compounding effect here. A single session may not look dramatic, but repeated blocks over weeks and months can produce extraordinary progress. The deeper message is that priorities become real when they enter the schedule. If your calendar does not reflect what matters most, your life eventually will not either. In the one thing, time blocking is one of the simplest ways to stop living by accident and start making your biggest goal an actual part of your day. A major lesson in the one thing is that extraordinary success often requires saying no not just to bad distractions, but to good options. Gary Keller and Papasan know that the biggest threat to a great priority is often not something obviously foolish. It is something reasonable, interesting, useful, or socially expected that still pulls energy away from what matters most. This matters because many people think focus means eliminating only the clearly unimportant. But real focus is harder than that. It often means turning away from opportunities that are attractive, but not aligned enough. The authors want readers to understand that every yes has a cost. Time, energy, and attention are limited. When you say yes to something secondary, you reduce what remains for your one thing. This is why saying no becomes a strategic skill. It is not negativity. It is protection. It keeps the main thing from being crowded by many smaller things. The practical lesson is to become much more careful about what you agree to. Ask whether this opportunity supports your one thing or competes with it. Ask whether this request deserves the energy it will take. Ask whether saying yes here weakens your biggest priority somewhere else. This principle is especially powerful because it reveals why so many people feel divided. They have not said yes to one clear path strongly enough to begin saying no to competing demands. Keller and Papasan are not calling for selfishness. They are calling for clarity. A meaningful life cannot be built by treating every possibility as equally important. There is also emotional maturity in this lesson. Sometimes you must tolerate disappointing people or missing out on lesser opportunities in order to preserve your best work. The authors show that this is one of the hidden costs of extraordinary achievement. It is not only what you choose. It is what you are willing to leave behind in order to choose it fully. Their deeper message is that your one thing deserves more than leftover energy. It deserves defense. And that defense often begins with the courage to say no to what is good, so you can say yes more completely to what is great. In the one thing, focus is never accidental. It is built through repeated acts of exclusion that protect what matters most. One of the more controversial ideas in the one thing is the book's challenge to the idea of perfect balance. Gary Keller and Papasan argue that balance is often misunderstood because people imagine it as equal attention to everything at all times. The authors say that this kind of balance is not realistic and may actually prevent extraordinary results. Their point is not that relationships, health, work, and rest do not matter. Their point is that in the pursuit of meaningful outcomes, some things require disproportionate attention for a season. If you try to give equal energy to all things all the time, nothing receives enough force to become exceptional. This matters because many people feel guilty whenever they lean strongly into one important priority. They interpret temporary imbalance as failure. The book says this is often how real progress works. You may need to go out of balance in one area for a period in order to produce a breakthrough. The authors distinguish between counterbalancing and balancing. Counterbalancing means intentionally giving more time to what matters most when it needs it. Life is adjusted dynamically rather than equally. The practical lesson is to stop chasing an impossible picture of perfect equilibrium. Instead, become aware of seasons. What deserves more attention now? What can be maintained rather than maximized temporarily? What truly matters enough to justify a stronger push? This is not permission to neglect everything else blindly. It is permission to accept that meaningful results often require temporary concentration rather than constant equalization. This idea is especially helpful for ambitious people who feel torn between wanting great results and wanting every area of life to look evenly managed at all moments. The book says that pressure may be unrealistic. Keller and Papasan want readers to become more honest about how results are created. Great outcomes usually require focused periods of extra investment. Their deeper message is that life becomes more workable when you stop demanding equal intensity from every priority at the same time. Intentional imbalance, when chosen wisely, can actually serve the bigger whole. In the one thing, balance is not rejected completely. It is redefined. Instead of asking how to keep everything equal, ask how to direct energy where it matters most right now without losing sight of the larger life you are trying to build. Throughout the one thing, Gary Keller and Papasan keep returning to a pattern they believe appears across achievement. People who produce extraordinary results often simplify aggressively. They identify what matters most, build their life around it, and refuse to let complexity dilute their progress. This matters because many people assume extraordinary success must involve extraordinary complexity. They imagine top performers juggling hundreds of moving parts at once. The book suggests something different. While outcomes may eventually become large and complex, the path forward is often guided by unusual simplicity. The simplification is not lazy. It is strategic. It comes from asking the right question repeatedly. What matters most? What is the one thing now? What should receive my best effort? What should be ignored, delayed, delegated, or removed? The authors believe that success leaves clues because results are rarely random. Patterns emerge. Focus matters. Leverage matters. Simplicity matters. Time protection matters. High-value habits matter. The practical lesson is to stop assuming your life and work need more complexity in order to improve. Sometimes what you need most is a cleaner priority, a shorter list, a more protected block of time, and less fragmentation. This principle is powerful because it frees people from trying to optimize everything at once. It directs them back to the highest leverage move. Keller and Papasan also show that simplicity creates emotional relief. A person who knows their one thing often feels less anxious because they are no longer trying to satisfy every demand equally. There is a maturity in this lesson. It reminds readers that wisdom often looks simpler than confusion. The clearer the priority, the less noise is needed. The deeper message is that extraordinary results rarely come from making life more crowded. They often come from making it more directed. In the one thing, the path to bigger success is not hidden in complexity. It is often found in the disciplined return to a simpler, better question about what matters most. The one thing is not just about tactics. Beneath the time blocking and focus strategies is a deeper idea. Purpose gives priority its power. Gary Keller and J. Papasan argue that people sustain focus more effectively when they are clear on why their work matters. This matters because discipline becomes fragile when it is disconnected from meaning. A person may try to force productivity for a while, but if they do not feel connected to a larger reason, their focus usually weakens under pressure. Purpose changes that. It creates emotional energy. It helps a person decide what deserves sacrifice and what does not. It gives the one thing more than strategic value. It gives it personal significance. The authors suggest that purpose and priority are deeply connected. Purpose tells you what matters in the larger sense. Priority tells you what to do now in service of that purpose. This is powerful because it unites long-term meaning with daily action. Your one thing is no longer just a random productivity target. It becomes the next important expression of what you care about most. The practical lesson is to ask not only what your one thing is, but why it matters. What larger goal, contribution, or identity does it serve? What future does it help build? This makes focus easier because meaningful work can absorb more of your attention than work that feels disconnected or empty. Keller and Papasan want readers to understand that productivity without purpose can become hollow. You may become efficient, but not fulfilled. Purpose gives direction. Priority gives structure. Together, they make concentration more sustainable. There is also a strong emotional truth here. People are more willing to protect time, say no, and stay consistent when they feel they are serving something important rather than merely checking boxes. The deeper message is that extraordinary results are not only built from mechanics. They are often sustained by meaning. In the one thing, purpose functions like a compass. It points you toward the larger destination, while the one thing shows you the next step. And when those two are aligned, your work gains both direction and depth. One of the clearest insights in the one thing is that productivity is not mainly about becoming faster at everything. It is about becoming more selective about what you do in the first place. Gary Keller and J. Papasan argue that efficiency is useful, but it is not enough. Doing unimportant things efficiently still leaves you with unimportant results. This matters because modern productivity culture often obsesses over speed, tools, hacks, and organization systems. Those things can help, but the book insists that the bigger question comes first. Are you working on the right thing? If the answer is no, then improved efficiency may simply help you get to the wrong place faster. That is why priority must come before efficiency. The authors want readers to shift their thinking. Productivity should not begin with how much can I get done. It should begin with what deserves to get done. This is powerful because it protects people from a common trap. They become highly organized around low-leverage work. Their inbox is managed, their list is updated, their schedule is full, but their most important goal still lacks movement. The practical lesson is to evaluate your effort by impact first and speed second. Before optimizing your workflow, make sure the task itself is worthy of optimization. This principle also makes productivity calmer. Once the most important thing is clear, not everything else needs equal intensity. Some tasks can be delayed, delegated, or ignored without guilt. Keller and Papasan are not anti-efficiency. They are simply placing it in the right order. Effectiveness first, then efficiency. There is also a liberating honesty in this message. It tells people they do not need to master every productivity trick. They need to choose better and focus longer. The deeper point is that progress depends more on relevance than on volume. A single important action can outweigh many smaller efficient ones. In the one thing, true productivity begins with the courage to ask what matters most, and then the discipline to work there first. Everything else is secondary. As the one thing develops, a deeper warning emerges. The biggest mistake is not always failure in a dramatic sense. Often, it is allowing the small stuff to quietly steal your life. Gary Keller and Papasan show how easy it is to lose years to low-value work, fragmented priorities, constant reactivity, and busy routines that never truly serve your biggest goals. This is powerful because most people do not ruin their potential through one terrible decision. They lose it gradually. A day here, an hour there, a meeting, a distraction, a string of yes, a habit of postponing the important until later. Over time, the essential is pushed so far into the background that it stops shaping the life. The authors want readers to feel the seriousness of that drift. Your one thing is not just another productivity tactic. It is the thing most likely to create the life you say you want. If it never gets time, then the future attached to it also remains distant. This matters because small things always feel easier to justify. They are often urgent, socially rewarded, and emotionally simpler. The important thing usually asks more of you. It requires deeper focus, stronger boundaries, and a willingness to tolerate discomfort. The practical lesson is to become suspicious of endless smallness. Not every small task is bad, but if the small always wins, the meaningful usually loses. Keller and Papasan urge readers to remember that your life is shaped by what repeatedly receives your attention. If the best part of your day always goes to trivial things, then trivial things will own too much of your future. This idea is especially valuable because it brings urgency without panic. It does not say you need to fix everything instantly. It says you need to stop casually surrendering your best energy to what matters least. The deeper message is that meaningful life change often begins when a person finally refuses to let the minor dominate the major. In the one thing, greatness is not usually lost in one dramatic moment. It is often lost in distraction and regained in focus. And once a person sees that clearly, they begin protecting their priorities with much more seriousness. By the end of the one thing, Gary Keller and Papasan's message becomes unmistakably clear. If you want extraordinary results, you must find the one thing that matters most and build your life around it. Not around every demand, not around every opportunity, and not around every urgent distraction. Around the priority with the highest leverage. All the major ideas of the book point to this. Multitasking weakens attention. Success is built sequentially. The focusing question creates clarity. Big goals must be brought back to the present. Discipline is needed long enough to build habit. Willpower should be used when it is strongest. Time blocking protects priorities. Saying no preserves focus. Purpose gives the work meaning. Together, these ideas form more than a productivity method. They form a philosophy of concentration. Stop trying to touch everything. Stop confusing activity with achievement. Stop postponing the important until later. Choose what matters most and give it your best. For anyone listening to this summary, the practical takeaway is simple. Ask the focusing question. Identify the one thing in your current season that would make the biggest difference. Protect time for it. Do it before smaller tasks take over. Let it become the center of your discipline. Build habits around it. Say no more often so it has room to grow. You do not need to become perfect overnight. But you do need to stop pretending that every task deserves equal attention. It does not. And the sooner you act on that truth, the faster your energy returns. This is what makes the one thing so powerful. It does not promise success through complexity. It promises stronger results through clarity and concentrated effort. In the end, the book leaves the reader with a challenge that is both simple and demanding. Decide what matters most. Then organize your day, your choices, and your energy so that this priority is no longer treated like an afterthought. That is the final lesson of The One Thing. Extraordinary success is not usually built by doing more. It is built by doing what matters most with unusual consistency. Find your one thing, give it your best, and let the rest arrange itself around that decision.